You are tuned into Your Voice, Your Power with Anika. Real lives, real stories, and real hope through transformational leadership. You have entered the safe zone, the safe space for creatives, executives, business owners, dreamers, and leaders of the new school. Sharing tips, tools, and resources to thrive with authenticity as authorities on a global scale. Transformation is power, and so is your truth. Stay tuned for The Real Deal with Anika and her guests.
Good day, and welcome to Your Voice, Your Power. I am Anika Wilson, and today we are talking about how to be the change. So, we are talking about your calling, we're talking about change agents, how women, men, societal change makers, how we make it look good, how we make it look easy, and the real behind being a change agent. So, I want to introduce our guest today. We have Gay Polk-Payton, and she is a judge right down the street from me in Mississippi. And I want her to tell the world who she is and what she does. So, welcome and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Anika. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I am Gay Polk-Payton. I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, believe it or not. And I've lived here most of my life. I left to go to grad school and to go to law school. But I've been practicing law for 27 years. I've been an elected judge for 13 years and an appointed judge for 5 years. So I serve in 2 jurisdictions. And I have one son. His name is Gabriel. He's 26 years old and a graduate of Jackson State University. Member of Kappa Alpha Psi. So we share the crimson and cream because I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And but I have always been committed, even before I became an elected official. I have always had a really strong desire to educate people about their voting rights, because as a public defender, I had to deal with that a lot, with people not understanding which crimes would disenfranchise them. So many people think that they're disenfranchised when they're absolutely not, because there are only 22 crimes on the books in the state of Mississippi that will disenfranchise you, and about half of those are expungible. So I try to educate people as much as I can. I speak at a lot of banquets for Martin Luther King, for sororities and fraternities. I've gotten public service awards from Alpha Phi Alpha, Zeta Phi Beta, Omega Psi Phi, Alpha Kappa Alpha. I get awards for talking about social justice because I'm so passionate about it, because it's just so many people take their privilege for granted. It's like voting is a right, but it's also a privilege. And I just want people to understand how important it is, and understand that if you're not a part of the process that creates our government, that you're just a pawn being moved around to perpetuate the problems that exist in our government. So you're making it easy for things to stay the same if you don't bother to get up on election day.
Well, there. And so that answers the question is, what do you feel you were called to do? Because you just told us you educate and empower others. And this is so important. One of my best friends is, she works in rights restoration in Florida. And recently people were getting arrested for voting, even though they had their rights restored. And people are very blind and kind of ignorant to the fact that this exists, and it's still happening to this day. Unless you are directly impacted by it, it's not really something that you wake up and think about, that people are fighting for their rights that they already have. They're fighting for the
Right.
privileges that they already have. but yet people feel
Mhm.
that they have a right to disenfranchise others. And so I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really important that you're using your platform as, an opportunity to educate, especially our community, because they really don't talk about it. They don't dig deep. Then all of a sudden, when election day happens, nobody voted. So I believe where I
Yeah.
live, our pastor recently talked about, I want to say like 200,000 people or something like that that didn't vote. So
Right.
tell me your
Some of them
thoughts.
have reasons, some of them don't. It's just when I was running for office in 2011 and I met a man on the street while I was campaigning, and he told me, he said, I really would love to vote for you. He said, you sound like you know what you're talking about. And I said, well, okay, but why won't you vote for me? And he said, I can't. I said, why not? He said, I shot somebody 20 years ago. And I said, sir, I'm not trying to get in your business, but did they die? And he was like, no, ma'am. I said, well, then you can vote. I said, murder and manslaughter disenfranchises you, but aggravated assault does not. He said, so you mean to tell me I could have been voting for the last 20 years? It's like the Bible says, our people perish for lack of knowledge. They just don't know.
Yep.
And nobody takes the time to tell them.
That is absolutely correct. And I was a classification officer in the prison, and I did releases. And I would tell them
Mm-hmm.
immediately, make sure that you exercise your right. And a lot of them just don't do the work. They don't go back and look, or they have been miseducated, misinformed, and
Right.
they just write
Right.
it off like they said. And realistically, people use word of mouth. People don't really take the
Right.
time to dig into whatever it is that, they need to know. People just go by what is said, what is heard, especially in the community, in the churches, in the schools, or wherever. And so I really,
Right.
really appreciate that you are doing this and you're educating the community. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into leadership, because leadership is my jam. And I want to ask, what does leadership mean to you?
Oh, leadership is everything. I graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi with my undergraduate degree in business, and I got a master's degree from the University of New Orleans, and then I went to law school at Ole Miss. So when I think about the people who paved the way for me to be able to do that, Clyde Kennard at the University of Southern Mississippi, James Meredith at the University of Mississippi, and I think about those people, and I think about how they were pioneers and they paved the road. There were trees there at one time. There were just trees and debris and brush. And so they knocked those trees down, paved a road for me to be able to walk on. And in my leadership position, where I stand now and where I have stood for the last 30 years, my job as highway maintenance is to make sure that the highway is safe for those coming behind me, because the ones who paved the road for me made a much bigger sacrifice than it is for me to just continue to keep the roads safe for those coming behind us.
I'm so
So
visual,
that's what
and it
leadership.
just it just works. I'm over
Yeah, yeah.
here.
And that's
I'm
what leadership means to. Yeah,
I'm looking at the crew cleaning up the street. In my head, I'm like, there go the cleanup crew. Here they come. They cleaning up the highway.
right.
They maintain it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Getting rid of those potholes. We got to get rid of those potholes because, like you said, every once in a while for voting. And so those are potholes in the road. So we have to do the highway maintenance, not only for our fellow man, but for the children that are coming behind us. I can't get the attitude that I've gotten my degrees, I've gotten my education, so you got to get yours, do it the best way you know how. No, my job is to educate them and show them how to navigate these waters, how to understand how to get around this, how to get under this, and how to get through that.
that is so true. And as a visual person, you're talking about potholes, and I'm in New Orleans, and I'm like, you went to UNO, you know about some doggone potholes, and you know that
Indeed,
you need
indeed. And
somebody to help you navigate that mess unless you know
yes,
better. So
indeed.
you are
Yes,
absolutely
indeed.
right. And it's, I think it's important for you, especially representation. Let's just be real. I can sugarcoat it and talk in another way, but the fact of the matter is representation matters. And for young girls, women, Black women, women our
Mm,
age, to see someone like you in the position that you're in, I'm not even going to ask you like how to interpret your role, your calling, or anything like that, because you walk it and you talk it every day. So it's extremely important for people to see you. Your visibility alone just
definitely.
means something to
Yes.
the community, because we don't see women
It
like us.
definitely does. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true. And the most humbling experience I had was in 2012. My son is a cancer survivor. So he had just finished his chemotherapy treatment, and my sister helped me so much when he was going through his treatment. And so I wanted to treat her. So I treated her to Essence Festival, and we went down to New Orleans for Essence Festival. And while we were down there, I get a text message from my secretary, and it says, "Do you have a copy available of your bio?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got one on my phone." I said, "Why do you need it?" She said, "Well, the school called, and there's a little girl who wants to be you for Black History Month." When I tell you that was the most humbling experience of my life, it let me know that no, that's nothing to be puffed up about. That's something to be humble about, and know that there are children, there are little girls watching me who want to be me, and I have to walk the walk. I can't just talk the talk. I can't just go around when I'm running for office, because that's a problem that we have with the youth in our community. It's like the politicians only come around when they're running for office, and the preachers only come around when they pass the collection plate, and these children are seeing these drug dealers and these gang members who are bringing them a turkey on Christmas, and those people who are giving them $20 to run up the street. That's who they're going to trust. They're not going to trust people who are not there for them regularly on a regular basis and doing things in their communities to show them that we're here, we care about your future.
And you're absolutely right, because people don't see politicians doing the work in between election time and in the meantime.
Right.
What does the day-to-day look like, and what does doing the work look like? And so with that, I'm going to say, what does change mean to you, and what does it look like in your position?
Well, to me, change, we had a summit last week at Ole Miss about changing the system because of the people who are disenfranchised, who don't understand the system, who don't understand what they're facing when they're facing criminal charges. So when I became chief public defender back in 2004, it became personal for me, because I saw people dealing with a system that they just did not understand. And so it was my job to interpret the system to them, and to interpret them for the judge and for the DA. So it was like I spoke their language, and I spoke the legal language that I needed to interpret. So my job was that of an interpreter, and I stood in the gap between them and the DA. I had a story about that. I was out one night, and this man walks up to me and the guy that I was talking to, and he said, "I want to say something to this lady this lady right here, if that's okay with you, sir." And the guy who was with me said, "Well, if it's okay with her, it's fine, with me." And I looked at him, I said, "What's up?" He said, "I just wanted to tell you that if you ever need a kidney, if you ever need a blood transfusion, if you need me to lay down in front of a train for you," he said, "just let me know what you need, and I got you." And I was looking at him like, "Okay, but why?" And he said they were trying to send me to jail for life. He said I was a habitual offender. I'd had a violent offense back 20, 30 years ago. He said, and my new crime, I was on my third strike. And he said, "You stood between me and the DA and said, 'Not today.'" And he said, and that is so important. He said, we need, in order to change the system, we have to change it from the inside out.
That's
a
right.
lot of people want to come and hit it from the outside, but sometimes imploding way that you have to do it, because I watched this movie where they were saying that if you hit this meteor or you hit this asteroid on the outside, it's just gonna smile at you and keep coming. But if you dig down deep, I think it was Armageddon, and he said if you dig down deep and put a hole in the middle of it and put that explosion on the inside, it will implode. So my job as a change agent is to change it one case at a time, one person at a time, and to make a difference in people's lives, and to go to summits and go to judicial training and talk to my fellow judges about paying attention to what these people understand, making sure they understand their rights, explaining their rights to them. Each and every case, it doesn't matter how small it is, it doesn't matter how big it is, we have to explain their rights to them so that they will know what they're facing, because so many people don't understand, why am I here? And so my job as a change agent, as a lawyer, as a judge, is to understand that I can't get puffed up about that. I can't, get this, I can't get this black robe syndrome where I think I'm better than people, because I know that there, but for the grace of God goes my child. And also that the power vested in me by the state of Mississippi doesn't mean anything unless God vests me with the power to take my next breath. So I have to stay humble so that I can understand that I have to walk with the people and help them to understand on whatever level they're on. I got to be able to speak the talk on whatever language they're on. And that's how I'm a change agent from the inside out. That's what change is all about, from the inside.
I got it. And you standing in the gap. And that is so, and you talked about being a translator, and I can relate that to so many things as a Black woman. You know, I specialize in workforce development, workforce change, leadership, and all that. And as a Black woman, the workforce is no longer safe for me. And so it's interesting how I'm listening to you and how I got into law enforcement because I wanted to be the change. How we get into these things as visionaries because we know that we have to get inside of it to implode it. However, a lot of times we happen to be casualties. And I'm just listening to you at how the system, it's all related and it's all this big circle, but we got to support each other through the process. So I really want you to talk about the power of social justice and voting and why it is so important to you and what the power of voting, what it truly means.
Okay. So I have a perfect example of this, and I've used this on several occasions at different churches and different events I've spoken at. Now, there's outrage when a unarmed Black man is killed by law enforcement, but we got to trace the cable. We got to trace the cable on that. That law enforcement agent who killed this person was hired by a police chief, and that police chief was appointed by an elected mayor and confirmed by an elected city council. Now, if this person ends up getting charged with a crime for killing this unarmed young man, they're going to go before a panel of registered voters called the grand jury. The grand jury is going to be addressed by another elected official called the district attorney, who is going to tell them what he wants them to know, depending on whether or not he wants this person to be indicted or not. If he gets indicted, then the case is going to move forward to another panel of registered voters called the petit jury. That's the trial jury. The trial jury is going to listen to whatever they can listen to, because this other elected official called the circuit judge is going to tell them, he's going to rule on objections, he's going to rule on motions, and he's going to tell the jury what they can hear, what they cannot hear. And at the end of that trial, he's going to give them jury instructions telling them how to interpret what they heard and what they understood. And then if he's found guilty, then that same elected official is going to sentence that person to jail or to probation. You know, it could be anything. It could be anything from probation to life in prison. So if you don't understand those processes and understand how, if you're not a registered voter, you are not a part of any of that. But the problem with that, with you not being a part of any of that, as a Black person, you have to understand that the only part of that you're either that defendant or you're the victim. So it's like you need to be a part of the system that is dealing with that case where that Black person is either the defendant or the victim. It is so hard to get Black jurors to report to jury duty, and that's where they get the jurors from. It's from the voter rolls. And so it's like you got to be a registered voter to be a part of the process. And not only that, you have to show up on election day. We have sometimes 15% voter turnout in some of the largest Black districts. And that's like 5,000 or 6,000 votes down the toilet that could change the trajectory of an election and unseat an incumbent who has been riding that good old boy wave for the last 30 years. But we have to understand our position. We have to understand our role and understand that, yeah, you may not be able to get much done as a finger, but if you get a bunch of y'all banded together and y'all make a fist, then you can do some real damage. But if you're not going to stand together, then the change is not going to come in the way. It's going to be a trickle-down effect. It's going to be so slow, but we can shift that dynamic. If you think about the Mike Brown case over in Missouri, that district attorney did not want that police officer to be indicted, and he made sure that it didn't happen. What did the voters in Ferguson do after that? They voted him out, and they got a new district attorney to handle those cases from this point on. You have to think about the Kyle Rittenhouse case and how the judge was so pro-defense that he shut down everything that the prosecution tried to do, and then Kyle Rittenhouse walked free. You have to think about those things. You have to really understand that you have to be a part of the process that picks that judge. You have to be a part of the process that picks that district attorney, and you have to be sitting on that jury to make a decision about which way this case is going to go. Otherwise, nobody cares about your outrage. It's like you take your outrage to the polls. If you're not going to take your outrage to the polls, then be quiet, because you can look in the mirror and cuss yourself out because it's your fault. That's just the bottom line.
I was ready to ask my next question, but no. Well, look in the mirror and cuss yourself out. Hey, that's clear as clear as clear. Question. Good Lord Jesus, that was good. My question was going to be, what resources can people use to get educated in their state? Because I heard you say something about Mississippi, about the jury, which I know in Florida, I think they pick the jury from your driver's license. So it really does differ per state, state to state.
Right.
Where do you want to send people to get informed about their rights, about voting? What information can you provide to our listeners?
Well, so in Mississippi, we have a Center for Justice in the state of Mississippi, and one of my very good friends, Angela Wade, is the director of that Center for Justice, and they have resources. You can go to the Mississippi Center for Resources. You can go to the ACLU. If you go to the ACLU website, they will have information about which crimes disenfranchise you, how you can get your record expunged, how you can get your voting rights back if you've lost them. Because a lot of people think that they've lost their voting rights, and their voting rights are right there in their pocket. Like, one of the crimes that disenfranchises you is receiving stolen property. That is an expungable event, an expungable charge. So that means that if you get convicted of receiving stolen property, even though it disenfranchised you, you can go and get that expunged from your record, restore yourself to the point of contemplation before that crime ever happened, and then you have your voting rights back. So you have to make sure that you understand these processes, but there are places, use Google for more than to find out what a club is. Use Google to say, who can I talk to find out about my voting rights? Because, the ACLU, the Mississippi Center for Justice, the Justice Department, all these places are there. But if you don't know how to hone that, if you don't know how to target that so that you'll know what you're looking for, be specific in your Google search. Make sure that you say, I want to restore my right to vote. Google will take care of it from there. Go into AI, use Chat GPT for something more than to plagiarize and write a paper, and go in there, and Chat GPT will tell you where to go to get the information that you need to find out what you need to know to make sure that but it has to be important to people. That's the problem. It's not important enough to people. It's like people think that, oh, well, she has enough people voting for her, I don't need to go. And if 500 people say that, then that changes the whole trajectory of the election. So it's like, you can't do that. You have to understand that your voice is your vote. And so that means that, this is the thing that just bewilders me about Black people. Why do you think that white people work so hard to keep us from voting? Why?
Exactly.
Why do you think that? Right.
Because they know that nobody's going to take that extra step. You know what I mean? You get out of prison, and then you got to take an extra step to get your rights back. But they're there. And it's like, okay, just fill out this paper, go turn it in, and then follow up. That's
exactly
it. And it's no different than all the extra steps that all of us take for our education and everything else like that. They think us getting JDs and PhDs and all that's easy. No, it's just us taking those extra steps. And yes, we procrastinate and we fall off, and it takes us a couple years, and we got to go back, and we might have to retake the class, but we take the extra step. And it's nothing different than what we've been doing for years and centuries and generations, but you got to take that extra step. And you said a very important thing. It's not important until the day of voting, the day of the presidential election, all that. Then everybody want to cuss themselves out. They need to go look in the mirror and cuss themselves out. But in between those days, like, what are you doing, and why aren't you doing it? And I'm actually a military spouse. And one of the things that really pisses me off is that every time I move, I got to re-register. I got to get a new driver's license. I got to re-register my business in a different state. And people don't understand. Everybody talks about how glamorous the lifestyle is, and it is not. Because when you look at those things like that, I don't really know the people in every place that we move to. I don't know. I have to educate myself on the judges and the local elected officials, because my kids go to those schools. We live in those districts. When we have tornadoes like we did the other day, it matters, and it's an extra step. It's a learning curve for us too. And so my point is, don't be lazy, get mad, but what you going to do about it? Like, take action when you get frustrated. And that's why I asked you to provide those resources, because a lot of times people may know something exists, but until somebody straight up calls them out and says, hey, you need to go do this, that, or the other, people don't do it. So this is your call to action.
Yeah.
to do something.
I was just gonna say that then you gotta be educated about it, because a lot of people think about the presidency and when Donald Trump was elected president, and that Hillary Clinton got the popular vote majority, but he won still. You have to understand that the Electoral College only picks president. That's the only election that is decided by the Electoral College. Everything else is one man, one vote. So you can't say that my vote doesn't matter because you voted for Hillary and she didn't win, even though she had the most popular vote. You have to understand these processes and know what is going on with these processes. It's like Black people showed up to the polls in record numbers when Barack Obama was running for president. But if you don't follow through and go and vote when you see someone who has the same ideals and the same understanding of social justice as Barack Obama, just because he ain't Black, that doesn't mean he doesn't have the same ideals and the same understanding of social justice. And you have to make sure that, because so many people in these red states, honestly, and I'm nonpartisan because I'm a judge, but a lot of the people in the red states vote against their interests, because they're the ones who are benefiting from Medicaid and from all of these social systems that are meant to help them, and they're voting against their interests. But this is what I understand about Republicans and white people versus Democrats and Black people. Democrats and Black people will find one thing that they don't like about you, and they will never support you. No matter what happens, they will never support you. White people and Republicans, they can find one thing that they like about you, and they're going to ride with you to the death. They're going to ride with you. They riding with Donald all over there in that courthouse in New York. I mean, it's like they riding with it. It don't matter, because they found that one thing, that one common thread that puts them in the same.
That's some psychology for you right there. That's straight up. Like,
exactly.
and people ask the questions, and I say behavior and patterns. Like, it's straight psychology. Behavior and patterns. Behavior is predictable when you understand people. And you spitting facts right now. I like don't even get into, and I say all the time, like, it's not, you shouldn't be a matter of Republican or Democratic, but you said something very important, the ideals. If you're a woman, you need to look at what you need, because our needs are different. It's not, everything is not about race. Everything is not about gender. Everything is not about geographical and regional location. Everything is not that simple. You have to do your homework. You really, really, really have to do your homework. And so it's up to us. It is our responsibility. And I think that everyone, whether you are a leader, whether you are a business owner, whether you are an elected official, it doesn't matter who you are, but we all have a responsibility to be the change. So I want to ask you if you have any last words for our listeners and all of the things that we conversed about today, any last words and tips or tools for them.
Well, like I said, I just want you guys to do your research, gather some understanding. It's like I do this thing on my TikTok every week called Free Legal Advice Friday, and I talk about voting, and I talk about disenfranchisement crimes. I talk about the aggravating penalties. I like for people to understand how the criminal justice system works. One of the topics that I speak on when I do speaking engagements is totality, because so many people get focused on one aspect of their lives and they ignore the rest of their lives. And the next thing you know, the rest of your life is falling apart. These young people, you're all excited because you got this wonderful career as an athlete or a singer or a star. Next thing you know, you've hit and killed somebody in a DUI, and everything you've worked so hard for is unraveling before your very eyes. You have to make sure that you pay attention to the totality of what makes your life what it is. And if you don't do that, then life will run over you and you won't even see it coming. That's what's so good. You won't even see it coming. And so this is, my book is called, This Has Been a Public Service Announcement. And, public service announcements, information disseminated for the greater good of society. So it's not like, don't, do this. It's not like that. It's like when your mama used to tell you, baby, get down from there, you're going to break your neck. It's like to help you avoid pitfalls in your life, to help you see the totality of your life so that you'll understand that no one determining factor is going to determine the outcome of your life. That's what a totality of the circumstances standard means in law. And it is my favorite concept in the law because it helps people to understand the big picture. And the biggest part of understanding the big picture is knowing that you are not the big picture?
Well, stay humble.
Stay humble. Understand your
humble.
role. Understand what you have to do to make your part of the big picture successful, make your part of the big picture effective, so that you can be, because when kids go to college, they get focused and all they want to think me, and then they get a degree. I spoke about this at a commencement exercise. So you get a degree and it's only a cluster of semester hours that is no benefit to you or anybody else, because you have not paid attention to the totality of what made your education what it is. Because sometimes what you learn in that book is not as important as what you learn about society by being around your classmates and understanding different cultures and what's going on all these college campuses with these kids that are going against each other because of social understanding of different concepts in the law and in the government. So it's like you have to see the whole picture before you can choose a side and know where you are. You got to know what your perspective is, what your understanding is. And if you don't have a true understanding based on knowledge and facts, then you're just going to choose a side and you're just going to be standing there with a sign and you don't even know what the sign says or what it means.
And that's fact. The lived experiences is the most important. And a lot of people don't know how to apply education and, certification and all of that to actual life. So I appreciate you.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for shedding light and making the legal system sound sexy, because y'all know y'all didn't know half of what she said until she said it. She made it sound good. So y'all dig deeper. Follow her on TikTok. I will put all of her information so you can find her. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. And I definitely got to get up with you because we're only like some few miles away from each other. So thank you.
98 miles. Thank you for having me. I had a wonderful time.
All right. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Your Voice, Your Power with Anika. As always, stay powerful.